So for my final presentation, this is also going to be a short one, but I think the topic is very important and very relatable in this industry of ours. And it's about they are you are your DNI efforts helping employees feel like they belong? So let's start with DNI. So it's diversity and inclusion. So diversity, that is having diverse group of people, it brings benefits in an organization, but it's not enough. As it doesn't necessarily mean that it's inclusive. So now diversity efforts in companies fall under diversity and inclusion. But again, in recent studies, it shows that DNI is not enough. And because it doesn't necessarily lead to a sense of belonging. And that is what we'll be discussing in this final presentation. So, when do employees feel like they don't belong? It could be for different reasons, right? But in each case, the result is the same, which the researchers call identity threat. So, it is defined as any situation that makes salient that one is different from the others. And it can range from trivial to troubling. It could be intentional, or it could be just the way it is perceived. Like, for example, when a manager talks to a low wage employees about their upcoming international travel plans, or um, mga bonggang parties, or when a coworker who calls out that a black colleague doesn't conform to a specific stereotype. It could be harmless in their intention, but how it is perceived by that person is not. So the authors conducted a research on 1,500 individuals. This is actually the largest and the most comprehensive research that's done with different identities, male, female, different racial groups, LGBTQ, and those with different ideologies, different culture, background, educational levels, and they try to identify um, what they wanted to do was to focus on different diversity, since most of the research before their focus was just very few of these diverse groups, and they are very limited. And in their research they found that employees encountered identity threat at least 11 times a week. But more importantly, it leads to employees feeling less included. So nawala na yung inclusive, and it also reduced their belonging. It is important to note that these two experiences are different. A sense of exclusion was associated with negative emotion, but feeling like you do not belong felt like they can't be themselves when they're at work. And when they don't feel like themselves when they're at work, it leads to lower workplace satisfaction. And they find less meaning in their work, and eventually, they will probably leave the company. So it's not enough for companies to focus on diversity and inclusion. They also need to foster belonging. So it will be D and I and B, or at least that's what they're proposing. So, in the interaction between teammates or supervisors, there's also a distinction between what they call real versus surface inclusion. So, real inclusion is when the employee genuinely feels included, involved, and accepted. Surface inclusion is when employees feel like they're being asked for their opinion because they were supposed to, or only to represent their social group. This happens pretty common, especially, for example, in my workplace. I'm the only female in our group. And sometimes they will deliberately ask me, Diane, what's your opinion? We want a woman's opinion on this. And this is not just me, I hear that all over the office. Or maybe another diverse group like the LGBT community. Or let's get an opinion from the only gay person in the office. So instead of really feeling included, this is just surface inclusion. And these employees feel that they less belong. So the question is, what can managers do? And we go into recommendations on what managers or leaders can do to make sure that their employees feel that they belong. So first of all, they should recognize that but they should recognize but don't overemphasize the differences. And their colorblind policies can make employees feel ignored. On the other side of the spectrum, multicultural approach tend to emphasize people's differences, and this can lead to stereotyping. So organizations must figure out the middle ground. Not colorblind policies, not multicultural, just somewhere in between. And this will help them figure out that the people in the social groups want to be included in the conversation. And next, managers can focus on creating an identity safe environment. So, what they can do is survey their employees' experiences to better understand what an identity safe environment looks like, because it could be different for every organization because you have different mix of diverse groups in your company. And it is important to involve everyone, not just the minority, to make sure that they feel heard. And third, feelings of support and being valued are critical. Employees should feel that support systems are available to them at the broader organization level. And leaders should create an environment where employees feel comfortable speaking up when they see something that is not being inclusive. They should feel that their concerns are heard rather than they are dismissed. And lastly, framing of inclusion attempts influences perception of sincerity. Now, as a whole, inclusion efforts of an organization should focus on different social groups and increasing the representation of those social groups. But for day to day, it should be focused on the individuals rather than the social group they represent. And rather than treating an employee as a representative of their social group, consider their unique experiences and frame requests for input around it. And so, in conclusion, more of our takeaways, inclusion efforts may be well meaning, but without a backbone of support and respect, they may feel less genuine. Leaders must get to know their employee individually so they will feel valued and respected. People want their social group to be included and their individual self to belong. We've learned that these two different things, and managers can address this when diversity initiatives consider social identity and inclusion initiatives the focus on the individual. And managers should show that an individual valued as a person, not just on the basis of their social group. Support and recognition from coworkers and leaders foster feelings of inclusion and belonging. That's all po, sir. Thank you.